I'm William Neal, and this is my TED-style talk about overpopulation jeopardizing the future of our planet. We have become so accustomed to technology solving all of our problems, or at least displacing their effects, that not even the world scientists warning to humanity can pass the social and political screen that informs our decisions. A warning in which over 600 of the world's most distinguished scientists insist that we must recognize that we are part of a finite system that is being pushed well past its ability to support us, and we blindly ignore it. How do we get to a place where we only recognize the positive ingenuity of technology and ignore its detrimental effects to the future of our planet? Is a sustainable world even possible anymore? In the search to make our lives easier, have we become addicted to the consumption of resources? This dependence has led us down a road of increasing inequity where the individual has become more important than the whole. Individuals have been given rights that allow them to flourish, often at the expense of others and the environment. Our natural resources are becoming scarce, and our unsustainable practices with agriculture are guiding us towards a huge fall where food availability will be well below the population needs to provide for, if that hasn't already happened. As our finite planet is incapable of offering us what it once could, we must recognize its limitations and attempt to reevaluate our social structure. A structure that is bent on consumption and personal interest has gotten so far out of control that the very planet itself is struggling to support current, let alone additional life. As we are becoming more educated on widespread issues of unsustainable practices, population growth is the one common link to almost all instances. We have always viewed the act of giving life as a right, a personal choice, not a decision that should be made for the masses. Perhaps it is this change that will truly spark an evolution into the sustainable age. One of the most influential writings on the issue of overpopulation is the Stork and Plow, The Equity Answer to Human Dilemma by Ehrlich and Daly, who claim that birth rate, the stork, is overtaking agricultural production, the plow. One of the aspects that make population growth hard to recognize is that the complexity of carrying capacity is past that which we can accurately calculate. There are some that believe that we are well past the Earth's ability to support us, and others that think we still have hope. In the Stork and the Plow, they introduce two ideas of carrying capacity, the first being biophysical carrying capacity, the maximum population size that could be sustained under given technology capabilities, and secondly, social carrying capacity, the maximum population that could be sustained under a given social system and its associated patterns of resource consumption. With this understanding, it is clear that there is much room for improvement with social carrying capacity, mostly in terms of equity. We are living far from an equitable world right now in an age where material goods seem to define who you are. People living at the top of this pyramid, the ones with the wealth and power, will not give up their way of living without a fight. Since this is such a small minority of the population, there is still hope. It comes in the form of education. It is education that prevents sexism, racism, religious segregation, inequity, and perhaps the most important, an understanding that our world is finite. The understanding of a finite world guides decisions such as whether or not to reproduce, how the agricultural system works, what we eat, and the resources we use. The diminishing natural resources show a relation between rich and poor countries sharing the blame in environmental damage, but through different means. This can be shown by using the formula I equals P times A times T, where I is environmental impact, P is population growth, A is affluence per capita, and T is environmental damage done by the technology used to obtain affluence. Wealthier countries often represent A and T, while less wealthy often represent P. In order to change the birth rate, we must first change the attitude of those having children. In Africa, for instance, there's social pressure on a woman to have large families. The decision to have children often comes from the husband or family members rather than a woman herself. After a child is born, there is no mentality change, which starts a vicious cycle of undereducated children repeating the steps of their parents. If the population had better access to education, they would understand that they could rise over this poverty by achieving a reduction in population. A statement from the World Bank in 1989, significant improvement in living standards cannot be achieved over the long term unless population growth is slowed. Without these changes, average citizens in these countries face poor quality of life and probably an early death. This system is only left to spread to the rest of the world through immigration and the supply of relief teaching the third world countries that they don't have to deal with their problems because we will help them. Although morally I don't believe it is right to entirely refuse help to those who cannot help themselves, it is important to reveal that we are all responsible for our own actions. If overpopulation is destroying access to natural resources, then you must exert immediate change. The dispute then becomes, how do we justify population control and how do we implement it? Controlling population has many personal consequences with our deeply cherished freedom to choose. We must stop recognizing that our issue of population growth different from that of infringement of all our rights. Tom Reagan, a philosopher and rights theorist, states, "We are each an experiencing subject of life, each a conscious creative having an individual welfare that is important to us. Because of ideas like this, we accept the fact that the act of murder per se conflicts with another's welfare, and thus widely agree to rule they cannot harm another individual. In a sense, the act of overpopulation also infringes on our rights. It is more camouflaged in physically murdering someone, but it operates more like a slow-acting poison leading to the same outcome. With this understanding, it is clear that overpopulation is just as deadly as other violations of our rights. We must remember that children don't get the right to decide whether or not to be born in a world that cannot support them. We must educate the mothers and fathers of this planet and make the right decisions by enforcing a policy that ensures it. In a world where population exceeds that of resources available, change must be made, and we must recognize that poverty cultivates the accelerated, unsustainable use of resources. It must be a foreseeable goal to recognize that this issue isn't just going to go away on its own, and we must implement change now. All this being said, I leave you with one final question. Can we evolve our social structure before our support system fails? Thank you.